Hi guys, it's Shamar. I figured I'd make a quick video kind of going over what's been happening recently. Um, so I kind of got 3D implemented, but I kind of don't. Um, Basically, I've been working on trying to set up a OBJ pipeline um, for rendering 3D models. So it changed a lot based on what I do for 2D. I use the orthographic projection for 2D rendering. So let me just go here. Basically, I use the orthographic projection for 2D rendering. And that just basically takes the screen coordinates and scales them down to that -1, 1 space to be rendered by OpenGL. For 3D, I had to look up some resources for this because my linear algebra matrices for 3D isn't really quite there. So I basically found out about the perspective projection, which I use for 3D because it essentially, how can I explain this? Basically, you have a Z near and a Z far, and basically it just clips anything after and before that point and just scales it accordingly in kind of a fulcrum or like a almost like a 3D trapezoid, right? Um, and so basically I changed some things around. I've added a couple of ternaries into the main rendering pipeline here. Um, I've set up this camera here, um, which I had to actually look up how to do because once again, I have no clue when it comes to just like visualizing like certain operations with matrices and how that would transform actual coordinates. So basically, this camera class, it essentially sets the width and height based off the screen width and height, and it sets the position. And we just essentially update the view and we also update the perspective again. We can also change these coordinates, but because this is kind of done the same for each frame. This really doesn't need to be here, but basically these two are updated, and whenever we actually want to change it, we can just actually use one of these keys here, and it will change it. So this goes forward and backward, essentially making the illusion that things are moving forward by scaling it up, essentially, which is what I use the translation for. Now, the translation doesn't have anything to do with the viewer projection matrices. That has to do with the render or the model matrix here. So when we actually translate using each layer, which I split up the 3D objects into draw calls, so one 3D model, depending on how many polygons it has, might have more than one draw call. So basically, the layers will be translated accordingly. Um, and then like it would actually scale it up and down based off this model matrix here. Um, and so I just basically translate everything that's not basically everything that's a 3D layer. Um, and then with these ones, I also just like kind of set the view. Now, if everything is like 2D or it's a GUI or something, it doesn't even use the perspective projection or the perspective view. It's only for 3D and non-fixed objects for right now. So basically, perspective is only going to be for 3D objects. Um, and actually, I can change that right now. I had this set for is fixed because I was trying to keep it for just GUIs that would kind of use the orthographic projection, but actually, I'm just going to say is 3D because I just think that makes more sense. Or not is 3D. Basically, that makes more sense because pretty much anything that's 2D shouldn't really use the camera at all for real. So it shouldn't really use that view that gets updated from the camera. Um, I'm just gonna run this example that I had. So let me go back here. So basically this code is gonna get deleted, but these are different colors to show like the actual sides of the OBJ that I was testing on. So I just made a quick half pyramid here. Um, so you can see this right here is the front side, and this one's the back side here. And so because the Z is going from point 0.1 to 100, let me see here. I set this to 10 so that it would actually be kind of visible in terms of like some perspective a little bit. That probably needs some work though, but anyways, if I run this, so you can see here we have we can use the mouse to move it, and you can see that we have this on the front. So this is that white, red, and yellow. If I go here, so this is for the first three vertices, and then the fourth vertice for that second side here, you can see is purple. So you can see we are getting depth testing. So that means we're rendering both sides here. So we are getting some kind of depth testing here. Um, and so we can move it accordingly as well here, up and down to the sides, and then we can move forward and backwards. And each item is basically the entire 3D model on the heap. So we just basically index into it for each layer and like grab a section of it to render. See what else do I want to go over? So get rid of that. The other thing I want to go over is let's see, there's one more thing. Right, so the operations. Let's see. So inside of here, this is where we're doing the translation. You see the translation here. Um, Now, I copied this from GLM, the translation, perspective, orthographic, um, the look at function, and there's many of them. Like, there's a ton of different versions of these functions, but I copied the right hand perspective for these functions. And so basically, I learned a lot while I was doing this in terms of like how the matrices actually work to create the model view projection matrix. So this was really fun doing this. It was really challenging as well for certain bits of it. Um, Let me see what else I want to go over. So it's not perfect. Right here I had to add some constants because when these weren't here, especially this one here, basically nothing will render. So I had to basically change that in the, let's see, render, see where I'm at. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping all over the place. I actually just finished this. I just wanted to make a quick video because I didn't really feel like doing this later. Um, I mean, I was just been working on this for the past few days now. So basically, let's see where I'm at. So basically, right here, I kind of just set hard coded this to be 1.0. But the only actual like matrix that was giving me an issue was the perspective projection here. That was the only one that was a zero and causing things to not render. So I just basically hard coded that into the perspective projection here. And then these other two values are so that we can actually translate. Because if these aren't here, then we can't actually use the arrow keys to go left and right because these would zero out as well. Because in the perspective projection, these are zeros. So I had to add the ones there as well. Um, so yeah, I mean the perspective isn't the best. It is, I mean it's not like Visual Studio's render here, but it gives you a general rendering of an OBJ file. I like it. I think it's okay for right now. It definitely needs some work for sure. As my understanding of matrices gets better. If you have any questions about any of the updates or anything, please don't hesitate to leave a question in the comment section. And until next time.